Just to tell you that if there was one thing that bothered me the most about myself all through the years was being too passive compliant and not being assertive. It was the thing I hated about myself. I just hated it about myself. And I felt like many times I just sold my soul because I wasn't assertive. And it wasn't until I was reading a secularist. This guy was a profane secularist. He was popular at the time. He's a clinical psychologist. His name was Wayne Dyer. And he wrote two books, one called Your Erroneous Zones, and the other book was Pulling Your Own Strings. And this secularist kind of got me onto this idea of assertiveness. And then as I started studying the Bible and looking at the life of Jesus, I found that Jesus was the most astounding and marvelous assertive person in history. And so I found that this is a Christian interpersonal relationship skill, and it will make us more effective. I want to say a prayer, and then I'm going to draw a chart for you guys. And by the way, I want to say that the drawings are going to look like second grade drawings, but just overlook that, because I'm trying to get away from the whiteboard, which is a little bit arduous at times. So I think I'll stick with the tablet, and we'll kind of work that way here, okay? Let me say a prayer and just ask God to bless us. Father, we're so grateful that we live in the kingdom, the greatest place on the face of this earth, where the relationships we have are of a quality beyond anything in the world. And something so significant is happening to all of us in the kingdom. And we're utterly grateful that we live in this place. We are privy to the greatest perspectives, the greatest knowledge that is possible, because it all flows out of from you. And so, Father, bless us here and now as we come together in the name of the greatest life ever lived in human history, of whom we bow our knee, of whom we are disciples. In his name, amen. Okay, so let me draw this kind of somewhere like on that white introduction page, because this is going to give us kind of a quick little overview of this whole thing called assertiveness. Now, we have choices in interpersonal relationships. We can be passive compliant. Okay, so you can write the word passive compliant there. Or we can be passive aggressive. That's where we appear passive, but inside we're like a burning furnace, right? Or we can be passive indifferent. We just get to the point we're just indifferent about things. Or we can be passive resistant, where we actually, people don't know that deep inside we're resisting, but we appear passive, but we're really in a resisting mode. Now all of these are ineffective. Uh-oh, I hit that with my finger. Okay, all of these are ineffective. So if you can get that word ineffective, that's a horrible drawing, horrible. Okay, all of these are ineffective. Now, sometimes when we can't stand it no more. That's Jersey, by the way. That's Jersey dialect. I can't stand it no more. Then we can become aggressive. Now, sometimes people are just flat out aggressive, but usually they launch from passive aggressive to become aggressive. Or if they become quite pugnacious, they'll become just straight out aggressive. This is ineffective as well in interpersonal relationships. But what is effective is when we learn to be assertive in the middle there. When we learn to be assertive, we will be superbly effective, superbly. And I'm going to share with you how to become superbly effective. As you become more assertive, your effectiveness is just going to grow. And so we're going to look at all that, all right? So I hope you got that chart. It does look horrible, but oh well. Okay, so we'll clear that here. One more thing there's a way to break in a book. By the way, I learned this from Evelyn Wood's speed reading. Evelyn Wood taught John F. Kennedy how to read 20,000 words a minute. And believe it or not, but when I took Evelyn Wood's speed reading, they taught us how to break down a book that is a paperback book. The way you do it, you notice like there's like a line there. And what you do is you take the book like this, and especially, obviously, paperback books. You put the book like this, and you just take the pages on each side, and then you go like this, see? And you break this book down. This particular book is broken down just like that. And you just, until you get like a few pages, until you get to the very middle, and you have a book that's going to last a lot longer if you do it like this, okay? So I've done it with this book. I hope you guys will do that. And then your book then will lay out flat like this. See how my book just lays out flat? Whoa, what's happening, bro? It just lays out flat like that, okay? So I want to go to chapter 1. And, well, once you get your book all laid out, yeah. And it'll last forever, really. So we've got to come to understand what assertiveness is, because we have a misunderstanding about it. We tend to think assertiveness is meanness, and one of the reasons we reject assertiveness is because we think that's being mean. I remember one time this one guy, he was very assertive in a situation, and I thought, he's being mean. But then, no. As I look at it, he wasn't being mean. He was being what I was supposed to be, assertive. And this fella was a very effective fella, but he was being assertive in this moment, and it caught my attention. But I misinterpreted it. I thought he was being mean. And so we've got to delineate what is assertiveness. So turn to page 9, and you see that there's a breakdown here. You've got, on the left, you got aggression, meanness, harshness, rudeness, cruel, vitriolic, belligerent, all that. And on the middle there, you've got assertiveness, firmness. You know, the Bible tells us to be firm. That word is used 20, 30 times in the New Testament. Be firm. That we're supposed to be firm. But there's no way you can be firm if you're not assertive. Stand up for yourself. Confront, clear with people, bold, insistent. But then you got passive, avoidant, indifferent. You see timid, fearful, intimidation, go along to be liked, avoids dealing with issues, indifferent to issues, passive, compliant. So we've got to get a clear beat on what assertiveness is. If you turn to page 10, it's not meanness, and you can read that on your own. I'm just going to hit some high points here. It's not meanness, so get that out of your head. It is not meanness. But then some will say, well, what about the idea of meekness? Well, do you know what meekness is? Meekness is power under control. In fact, some of the imagery with the word meekness is a horse that has power, but it's being constrained. It's under control. So meekness is a good word. It's a wonderful word. It's power under control, the judicious use of power. And then others may object. They say, well, what about this idea of turning the other cheek? Well, the purpose of turning the other cheek is a powerful, assertive thing. You turn the other cheek in an assertive way to have an impact on another person. And you have to consider how turning the other cheek is going to affect that person. And what about submission to unfair authority? The purpose of submission to authority is to actually have an impact, to grow and to have an impact on people. So if you look on page 14, this idea of submission with a point, like Viktor Frankl, who was in the Nazi prison camp. He submitted to the Nazis. He was in a situation he had to submit to Nazis, but he is submitted to the Nazis with a point in mind. And what he did is he studied the evil of the Nazis, and he studied why some Jews died and just gave up. And out of that came this incredible book called Man's Search for Meaning. And also what shaped out of that was a whole approach in helping people called existential therapy. And I love that approach to people, existential therapy. But if there's no point, if you submit with no point, with passivity, then you're not going to grow. There's going to be no growth from that. So now these are just, some of the items that kind of enter into the fray of the debate on assertiveness. And you can read all about that on your own. So any questions up to this point? Chapter 1, feel free. We're going to move quickly, but I want to entertain any questions that you might have as we go along. So turn to chapter, yes, go ahead.
So you said assertiveness.
Well, those who see it as being mean, they're the ones who have the problem, you know? They're the ones who are misunderstanding. But as people move through life in assertive ways, they are accomplishing things, affecting people, doing things that they could not ordinarily do if they were just passive compliant. But people are going to misinterpret you. If you're assertive, they may think you're being a meanie. But that doesn't take you off your game. So what? They're going to think all kinds of things, you know? They're going to think all kinds of stuff about how you look and, you know, your hair. And by the way, you have nice hair, and, you know, but people are going to look at, you know, and they're going to, why do you dress like that? So, you know, there's going to be a myriad of opinions about us. But if they're wrong on a point, they're wrong on a point. And they will be wrong on the point if we are being assertive. And we will not give up being assertive, because it will allow us to have effect like we've never been able to have. You'll see as we go through this stuff, you're going to go, yippee, man, I'm onto it. I'm onto it. So go to chapter 2, and let's lay out our case here. The first reason you need to be assertive, look at page 16, is we live in a dangerous world. We live east of Eden. I wish it wasn't so, but it is so. We live east of Eden. We live in a dangerous world. And if you're not assertive, you are going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt. And so every woman in this place needs to read a book called The Gift of Fear, which he goes into the idea of the intuitiveness that God has given us to deal with evil. In fact, it's in the bibliography on page 97, Gavin de Becker's book, The Gift of Fear. It is almost a must-read for every woman who lives on the face of this earth. I remember one time this one lady, she had these guys they just knocked on the door and they want to sell her magazines. And then the next thing they know, they want to take her to the ATM machine to get some money to pay for these magazines. And they were I believe, on to really setting her up for some kind of criminal act. But there was an interdiction that happened that actually caused this thing to go a whole different direction. But I told her, I said, man, you got to get assertive here. If someone knocks on your door, she's just this frail little old lady, man. I mean, they were about to get her into a car to take her to the ATM machine to get her, but she said, I didn't want to hurt their feelings. Well, you might not want to hurt their feelings, but they don't mind hurting your feelings, right? You know? So it's a dangerous world, and we have to be assertive. And then one of the greatest reasons is Jesus is our example. Now, we're disciples of the greatest life. Amen? Amen. The Bible says in this world, we are like him, right? And he who walks with Jesus must live like him. That's in 1 John, right? Okay? So we're going to be servants like Jesus. We're going to love like Jesus. But guess what? We're going to be assertive like Jesus. He was marvelously assertive. When you look at these examples, like, for instance, clearing of the temple, what would you call that? Meanness, or would you call that assertiveness? Assertiveness, right? And how about standing up against a crowd, a woman who'd been caught in the act of adultery, and here he is standing up against a crowd. That's assertiveness. And he said to these fellows, you fellows, listen to me. He was without sin. Let him be the first to cast a stone. Very assertive. When Peter was trying to knock him off course from going to the cross, Jesus looked at him and said, get behind me, Satan. For you do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of man. That's pretty assertive, right? But if you follow all the examples, you're blown away by how much there is here. His encounter with the devil in the wilderness, very assertive. Those who are disciples of Christ, as you look at how assertive they were in history, it is stunning. I'm reading Martin Luther King's book right now, his Bearing the Cross. It's like thick, man. I'm on page like 197. And I love the man. I can't, when in heaven, I just want to hug him. I just want to hug the man. I mean, how many of you have had your front door blown in? Anybody had their front door blown in? I haven't had my front door blown in. How many's had, like, bullets going through your windows? Anybody had that happen to you? Happened to Martin Luther King. And one time after there was an explosion on his porch, in the middle of the night, he sits down at his dinner table and he just prays to God. He's 26 years old. 26 years old. And he's asked to take on a burden to help change America. And Something happened to Martin Luther King that night in that kitchen. He points that as a pivotal point. And he actually said he lost his fear of men. At that point, he lost his fear of men. It didn't matter whether he died. He didn't care if he died. He lost his fear of men. You go look at this history. You know, John Calvin, John Knox, William Wilberforce, who took on the entire British Empire, John Witherspoon, Jonathan Edwards, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who took on Hitler. Every single one of these guys were assertive. They became assertive like their Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And that's what we are to be, like him. And then assertiveness is a lifestyle for God's people. Turn to page 19. You see, now as you break this down, okay, how is it a lifestyle for God's people? Well, first of all, God's Spirit encourages assertiveness. God has not given us a spirit of timidity, right? So what's the opposite of timidity? How about assertiveness, right? He hasn't given us a spirit of timidity, but a spirit of as it says here, of power and love and self-discipline. Second, we're to be spiritually mature, not equivocators, but assertive with truth. Who's a truth handler in here? Who's a handler of truth? Why, every single one of you is a handler of truth. There in no way you can handle truth if you're not assertive. There in no way. Because you got to be able to tell people the truth about their life. I do that every single day when I counsel. I got to tell people the truth about their life. And I know it's the right thing, and I know it's the best thing for people. So we're not to be equivocators. We're to be assertive with truth. And then look on page 20. God's people are to stand firm. I mentioned that. If you look at all these verses, how in the world can you stand firm if you're not assertive? So assertiveness will help us to do what the Bible says in standing firm. In fact, there's a scripture that says, like a trampled spring in a polluted well is the righteous who give way to the wicked. Isn't that something? Let me say again, like a trampled spring and a polluted well is the righteous who give way to the wicked. We're not to give way to the wicked. And what happens is once you become assertive, which will come when you're grounded in security, and we'll go into that in a minute, you can stand right in the face of evil. You can face evil and it won't even bother you. And then fourth, you bless others by being assertive. We're the light of the world, the salt of the earth. And by being assertive, you will marvelously bless people by being assertive with them. Okay, so that's the second major thing. Then look at the third one. Assertiveness sets you up to be a good steward with your life. We've been blessed tremendously, and we must be good stewards of everything that we've been blessed, everything we've been blessed with. Look at the list on page 21. These are some of the things. How about the use of your money? I mean, people would like to take your money, use your money, gobble up your money, right? But you got to be a good steward with your money. How about what your abilities, your giftedness, correcting and challenging misinterpretations of your lives, the use of your time. People would love to use all of your time and just gobble up your time. I remember in my unassertive days, I would just stand there and someone would talk to me and talk to me and talk to me, and for hours they'd be talking to me. I could just give you many embarrassing moments where I spent out, and inside I'm angry, I'm churning, I'm upset because this person is using up my precious time talking and 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 talking. What they need is for someone to say, you know what, you talk too much. And you know what? You need some help. You need to see a counselor, because this is rooted in a deep, deep psychological problem that you have, you know? Really. Now, I think timing's everything when you do that, of course, you know. But how many of you are good with cutting, you know, with dealing with people in that respect? I mean, if you're not assertive, you're going to be horrible. You're going to be real horrible with it. If you look at yielding to the direction of the Holy Spirit, entering into doors of opportunity, maintain a balanced and disciplined life, maintain your health, like even maintain your health. So, hey, eat this, drink that, you know. No, I don't eat that and I don't drink that. You got to be assertive with your religious convictions. I remember when Billy Graham, he said, I will not preach to a segregated audience. I refuse to do that. And when he had this big auditorium that had been rented out, and when he went out into the auditorium, he noticed that there were ropes segregating the auditorium. And he said, I told you fellas, I would not speak at a segregated audience. He literally went off stage and started removing the ropes himself. What do you call that? Meanness? No, you call that assertiveness, right? And Billy Graham was right. And your religious convictions, assertive with your property, influencing people for God versus being influenced by people of the world. So when you're assertive, hey, listen to me. When you're assertive, the world does not tell you what is what. If you're assertive, you tell the world what is what. But you won't be able to tell the world diddly squat if you don't get assertive. You see how important this is? This is important. All right, so then look on the next point in page 22. Assertiveness will make you a much more effective person. So you see that little drawing there. The more assertive you become, guess what? The more effective you become. Look at this. You become more and more effective the more assertive you become. In fact, there's a quote that says history. Oh, wow, what happened? Okay, it says, there's a statement, history tends to favor the bold. History favors the bold, tends to favor the bold. So the more assertive we become, the more bold, boldness is part of assertiveness, the more effective we will become. So you can read all that. There's little points to that. All right, just nice points to all that. I mean, this is a book for you to read, okay? Look on page 24. Do you notice on page 24 that when you're unassertive, there's no growth. You become inauthentic. You're little to no effect on others. You fail to get what you want. Relationships are limited. They become superficial. You compromise or sell your soul. Anybody ever felt like that? I felt like all of that at one point in my life. The stuff on the right, look at this, growth. Authentic self emerges, great effect upon others. You get what you want or what is good for you. You get what you want or what is good for you. You know, I swear, had I not been assertive, I wouldn't have found my wife. Because I remember when I met her, all these guys were like interested in her, and I'd always defer to all of those guys, okay, because I'm not assertive, right? And so, but finally I said, no, it's my turn. You know? And I got assertive. And I'm the leader of this team. We had 63 college students that were traveling throughout the United States. We were reviving youth ministries around the United States. And I remember it was at the first place we went to, and I said, I'm the leader of this thing. I'm going to assign her to my team. And I did. And I assigned her to my team. Now, had I not assigned her to my team, there would have been nothing, and all my kids would have never been born, and it just would have been tragic is what it would have been. But I assigned her to my team. I said, I'm going to be assertive. I assigned her to my team, and then she started connecting with us and connecting with me, and I said, now you're going to go with me, and we're going to meet with these students here, and I was quite assertive. See, assertiveness will help you get married, man, and help you find somebody. So you got to be assertive, all right? So the best things emerge. So in every encounter, look on page 25. In every encounter, you have a choice. You can avoid, ignore, withdraw, isolate, or you can be aggressive, or you can be assertive, passive, passive, resistant, passive, indifferent. So the more excellent way is assertiveness. So let's push on to chapter 3. Any questions at this point? Comments or questions? Quick comments or questions? Okay. So let's look at this idea of the shaping of an assertive person. Look at those 9 points. If you look on page 27, family of origin, a lot comes from our family of origin. If I was to ask you, who's been affected by that family of origin, would you please raise your hand? There's no exceptions. None. We've all been affected by our family of origin. I've been horribly affected by my family of origin. My dad was a drunken bum alcoholic. My mother was a rageaholic. There's no doubt in my mind she had borderline personality disorder. She was a rageaholic. She had borderline personality disorder. We ended up in the slums of New Jersey. That's where I grew up, because my dad was drank all the money away, and so we ended up in this deplorable situation. There were bums up in the alleys in abandoned cars. That's where I grew up. And so I was affected by all that. And I think it had an effect on causing me to be shame-based. I felt ashamed that I had a father like this, ashamed that I had a mother like this, ashamed that I lived in a neighborhood like this. And I became shame-based until I learned to take that shame and throw it on who it belonged, see? And there's a way to get away from shame, you know. Shame is when we internalize people's bad stuff, we internalize their bad stuff upon ourselves, right? So alcoholism wasn't I shouldn't be ashamed that my father was alcoholic. He should be ashamed that he was an alcoholic. That was something for him to own, right? But what happens, our family of origin affects us dramatically. So look, you grow up in an overly dominant family, a dominant father, mother, siblings, or caregivers. That can affect you because then they're so dominant over you, you just start shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, right? And then, or the second, a child may have become accustomed to being controlled by a family member or peers. Usually, when you have one dominant sibling over-dominating another sibling, and parents should be wise to that. Look, that one sibling is affecting that sibling. The over-dominance can cause the other sibling to become passive compliant or to not have a voice. Growing up in a highly conflictual family, a person may have experienced being put down in childhood or bullied. A child may not feel valued by parents. See, 6, a person simply may have never learned how to be assertive. They may have just learned how to be assertive. And then 7th, one may actually believe it's unchristian. A lot of people think that. To be assertive. 8th, passivity modeled by passive compliant or passive aggressive parents. And then 9th, growing up in extreme fundamentalist or legalistic religious group. There's a guy I'm counseling right now, and he grew up in an extremely fundamentalist religious group. And when they were punishing him, they would quote Bible scriptures. And it was a horrible fundamentalism. United Pentecostal Church is what it was, a highly fundamentalist thing. In fact, Philip Yancey wrote a book called Soul Survivor. He grew up in that same environment, and he was dramatically affected by that religious group, and you know, kind of left the faith. But do you identify with any of these points? Family of origin is one way to become unassertive. The second is being sinned against. You see those, turn to page 29. See on page 29, when you're sinned against, abused, abandoned, unloved, harsh criticism, mistreated, betrayed, overprotected, micromanaged, all those things, ridiculed, assaulted. When we are sinned against, then insecurity comes upon us. And in that insecurity, we feel unwanted, low self-esteem, fear of rejection, fear of disapproval, fear of being alone, feeling unloved, feeling unaccepted, see distorted image of self, body dysmorphia. And then that results in unassertiveness. So sinned against is a second way that we become passive compliant or unassertive. The third is comparing yourself to others. The bane of humanity is comparison. And everybody here has got to reject it, and you got to stop it. Comparison started with Satan comparing himself to God. And rather than be thrilled with who God was, he compared himself to God, and he thought, you know, I think I could do better here. And then he got Cain to compare himself to Abel, and he killed his brother. And then village started comparing itself to village and went to war, and comparison has taken place. Look, a comparison is the bane of humanity, and you've got to renounce it. The last time I compared, I think, was like about 13 years ago. And I felt myself compare myself to this guy who had high credentials, and he was in my circles, and I felt myself, and I started comparing myself. But then I said, Alan, stop it. Stop it. You don't play that game. You've given that game up. Stop it. And then I called him up. I said, hey, man, can I take you out for all-you-can-eat catfish dinner? And we had catfish together, and it was a beautiful thing. Now, we'll go more into this idea of comparison, but you can never become secure and never do well in the assertiveness department if you're comparing yourself to others. You can't compare your looks. You can't compare your education. You can't compare your socioeconomic status or your athletic prowess. You cannot do that. You've got to stop it. Now, you can assess people, but you cannot compare. And it's so subtle, we realize we're doing it all the time. And then we feel either inferior or we feel pride over the person we're comparing. So that's got to be renounced. Okay, any questions about these 3 avenues to unassertiveness? You identify with any of them? I identified with all of them, you know. Some are more prominent than others, but so at least to know how we got this way. Any questions at all about anything? Okay, so chapter 4 is assessments. I'm not going to go over that with you, but when you come to me for counseling someday, I'll go over that with you, okay? You know. Look up chapter 5. Now this is the ground zero for assertiveness, becoming secure. Yeah, page 41. By the way, the quotes are awesome. You got to read some of these quotes. They're really good. In fact, I got Martin Luther King's statement there on April 3rd, 1968. There's no way on the earth you can become assertive if you do not become utterly secure. Here it is. To be utterly assertive, listen to me, you might write this down somewhere. To be utterly assertive, yeah, write it in your book. To be utterly assertive, you must become utterly secure. To be utterly assertive, you must become utterly secure. But how do we become secure? You don't hear a lot talked about that. I've discovered there's 3 paths to becoming secure. All right, the first one, it's laid out here. The first one is you've got to eliminate the critical voice. You'll never be secure if you're in constant mode of self-criticalness, or you keep remembering your history and it creates a historical criticism of you, or others are critical of you. So you've got to eliminate the critical voice. In fact, you've got to get into the affirming voice. So I think every now and then we kick ourselves. That was stupid. But we don't psychologically mug ourselves. There's a difference. We must not psychologically mug ourselves in this negative self-talk. We got to get rid of that. And then if there's anyone toxic in our life who is critical of us, we've got to eliminate those relationships, even if it's in the family, even if it's in our family. Because the greatest relationships really are spiritual. And who really is our family? But he who does the will of God. That's what Jesus said. Who's my father? He said, who's my mother, my sons, my daughters? He who does the will of my Father. That is who is our family. It is a spiritual thing. It's not because we're genetically connected. I've had people who stay in family situations where they are chipped away psychologically, week after week, month after month, year after year. So you've got to take assessment on here. Are you under the critical voice? That's got to be eliminated. The second thing is you must identify deeply with the theological truth about yourself. Let me just show this to you here. Here you are, this marvelous being, and here's God. God made you in his image. There's a theological truth about God, but you know there's a theological truth about you? Now, it comes from God, but there's a theological truth about you. And the theological truth about you is astonishing. It is absolutely stunning. You are made in God's image. That is a stunning theological truth. You are dearly loved. You're not just loved, for God so loved the world again. No, you're not just loved. You are dearly loved. Ephesians 5:1 says, be imitators of God as dearly loved children. You're dearly loved. You live deeply in the grace of God. That's where you live. You live in the grace of God. You don't live under the boot of condemnation. You live in the grace of God. Now, how about this? You are unique in all of human history. There's no one like you. There will never be, ever. Ever, never, never, ever. No one has your fingerprint. 100 billion people have lived on the face of the earth, according to some anthropologists, conservative anthropologists. And there's no one like you. No one. Never. And in all eternity, there's going to be no one like no one like you. You are completely unique in all of human history. And that's one reason why you shouldn't compare yourself to anybody. You're so unique, to compare yourself to somebody is very misguided. We must get caught up in the theological truth of who we are. And when we do, all of this emotional sunburn goes away. We become utterly secure in this stunning theological truth. It is an astounding thing when we start viscerally. Now, you say, I believe this stuff. But do you viscerally identify with it? Viscerally means deeply, to deeply identify with the theological truth. I tell you, I do. I deeply identify with this theological truth. You must deeply bathe in this theological truth. You must deeply believe this theological truth and identify with it to the point that you're almost hilarious in it. You're thrilled, you're euphoric in this stunning theological reality of your own life. And then this other point, which we mentioned, and I list some of the theological truths in there, so you can go into detail about that, but we cannot compare ourselves. So look on page 50 about this comparison thing. So 3 ways to be utterly secure is we have to eliminate the critical voice. We must deeply identify with the stunning theological truth of our own life. And 3, we must eliminate the comparison of ourselves to others. We must get caught up in the assessing of others. Notice on the left, you see on that diagram on page 50, when you assess people, here's the ways to do that. You're grateful for the person. You're inspired by the person. You learn from the person. You love the person. You serve the person. You prayed for the person. You enjoy the person. I remember this one ball player, he played for Asbury Park, New Jersey, which is a great basketball school. I remember, man, you know, I was kind of jealous of him because he was one of the best shooters in the state of New Jersey. But then I said, how does he do this? How does he shoot like he shoots? So I started studying him, and I started analyzing how he got the ball, how he dribbled, how he went straight up, how his wrist was located, and how he released the ball, not at a 45, back at a 90-degree angle, and flipped the ball. And he was a marvelous basketball player. And in assessing him, guess what? I picked up something from him. And I gained something for my own jump shot. And I started actually doing some of the stuff he was doing in his jump shot, and my percentages started escalating, increasing. You know something? Someone's good doesn't take away from your good. Someone's good blesses you, but it will only bless you when you assess people, not compare yourself. Because when you compare yourself to other people, you become blind by envy, blind by jealousy, blind by intimidation. So, but when you assess people, you gain from people. People's good contributes to your good. All right? So we got to commit there. So this is ground zero for assertiveness. Any questions about this chapter? Imperative stuff, huh? Okay, all right. Okay, we got to get there. We have to get there. All right. So it's 7:38. Let's see. Oh, that's my wife who I used assertiveness on right there. She just texted me. She's in California right now. I'll have to tell her I used her. Anybody want to take a break? And then we're going to hit it hard, chapter 6, 7, 8. Anybody want to take a break? It looks like you're taking a break. Let's take a break for 5 minutes and we'll come back, okay? And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Just 5 minutes, okay? We've got an hour and 45 minutes, and we have a lot to cover. I want to mention, and I'll mention these to you as resources. This book is on emotional regulation, and it is, have you seen it, book? Have you?
I have it.
Okay, you got it. Yeah, it's a real, this is a good book to even disciple someone with, and, you know, because we're all emotional beings, but handling our own emotions is, man, it's a very difficult thing. And we've learned our emotionality from our family origin too, you know, but we develop emotional habits that are not good for us. So this book is very practical, gets right to it. It's kind of a combination of psychology, theology, and neuroscience. So you got to check it out. Those books are available in the back there if you want to get it. This one is on love. You know, I've come to conclude it's such an infinite experience. If we don't break it down in manageable parts, we're never going to be able to understand love. And so this is a takeoff on C.S. Lewis's book called Four Loves. And I kind of do a modern kind of treatment on this where I deal with the four loves and the idea of intimacy and also lost love. And I counsel tons of people who are going through a horrible experience of a lost love. And so there's a section in here on that. You might want to consider getting that one. And this is, you know, we're sexual beings. And we're in a culture of such hypersexuality And I find that everybody struggles with sex in some way, So this is this book deals with, women love the book as well, but it's primarily for men. But I've had a lot of women who read this book. But it's very practical in how do we deal with our own sexuality. And it also has the love stuff in it as well. So you might want to look at that one and kind of check it out. All the books are $15 each. All right. So let's look at chapter 6, thinking assertively. Now, how in the world can we become assertive unless we, how can this happen without us transforming the way we think? So this is a biblical concept. It says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Here's one way of looking at it, that we develop constructs in our brain about things. And these constructs are little ideas, experiences, and beliefs that we come into. And let's call this the unassertive construct. That a construct, again, is how your brain constructs around an idea or an experience. So as we interpret people and situations out there, what happens is if we interpret them through this construct, which, by the way, has a neural pathway down to our limbic system, which is the emotional side of our brain, and a neural pathway to the prefrontal cortex, which also causes us to make decisions and determine what we do and not do. So you've got these neural pathways that connect all of this. We will be perpetually unassertive if we function through this construct here, right? We'll be unassertive. But if we can build a new construct, and all of us must do that, we build a new construct, deliberately building this new construct to the point that we reach a cognitive tipping point, and we end up becoming assertive. Now, to change a construct in the brain, the average amount of time, boy, that looks real confusing. The average amount of time is about 120 days. You can change a construct. I wish this lady was here tonight, Sheila Baugh. She changed a construct so fast. She had the same nightmare for 30 years. 30 years. I wish she was here I would have had her spoke had she been here. I'd say, tell us, is this true? Am I lying? 30 years, the same nightmare. She probably got it through what's called implicit memory. When she was maybe 2 or 3 years old, something happened. She saw something on television or something happened, and it lodged in her brain and started growing and growing and growing and taking a life on its own. And to the point that when she hit a certain age, she started having this nightmare over and over and over again. And I told her, we're going to beat this. We're going to beat it. And we started building a whole new construct, and it didn't take long. And I know I strain incredulity when I tell you we beat it in less than a week. Now, that's almost abnormal for it to happen that fast. Normally, it's like 120 days you can start changing a construct in your brain. Any construct. If you feel like you're not valuable, that's a construct. I have no value. Who am I? That kind of thing. You can start changing that construct deliberately. Now, what we have to do is build a assertiveness construct. Now, how are we going to do that? So what we're going to do is we're going to integrate into the brain in this, here's the old construct, here's the new construct. We're going to integrate into the brain new neurolinguistics. We're going to use neurolinguistics. We're going to start integrating these into a new construct in your brains to the point, and then we're going to engineer experiences, actual experiences, by which you become assertive. Now, I'll tell you, I remember when I was working on my assertiveness stuff, I remember I'm building this new construct in my brain, right? And I remember there's a couple ladies behind me talking in church, and they were disturbing everyone around them, and they were disturbing me. And I said, Alan, here's your chance. Put up or shut up. You're either going to learn this or you're not. You're going to start practicing the service or you're not. So I prayed about it the whole time. I'm, kind of a little nervous about it. And the service was over, and I said, ladies, could I speak to you a moment? And they said, yeah, sure. So I took them aside, and I said, you guys talked all through this church service, and had I been an unbeliever, I would have never heard this message, and I would have walked out here and probably been turned off to this place. I said, I'm a Christian. I can overlook stuff like this. But I'm telling you, what you did in the assembly of God's people was improper. And you must not do it again. You could have went out in the hall and you could have talked up a storm. But instead, you talked in the assembly of God's people. I said, do not do that again. And they said, oh, we're so sorry, and we'll never do that again. But I walked out of there, yes! I was assertive, man, and I felt good. And that was one of the first deliberate assertive experiences I started lodging in this new construct in my brain. And so you can engineer experiences. And experiences bring in a lot of neurons, like lights, camera, action. A lot of neurons get caught up in a construct. You could have 100,000 brain cells involved in one construct. You got 100 billion, what's 100,000, right? So one way to do this is by starting to anchor in, I look on page 54, the integration of assertiveness ideas. I mentioned the specific assertive experiences using creative images and neuro-linguistics. Now, here are some ideas that you need to integrate into your thinking. Look to page 56. So you see on page 56, I listed that first one there. I'm an assertive person. It is right for me to be assertive with people. It is wrong for me to be aggressive, passive, or diminish myself with others. I reject the idea of timidity. I embrace the idea of boldness. Now, you've got to integrate these ideas like a ratchet. You got to ratchet it down in your brain. Now, I don't recommend you do that with the bolt, but an idea. You got to get this idea ratcheted in your brain so it's actually lodged on to a brain cell. And when I was working on this stuff and other constructs that I've attempted to build, I'd be on my elliptical, like a 24-hour fitness, and I would be going over that construct, that neuro-linguistic, that idea, over and over again. Now, there's two things with this. It's called asseveration and perseveration. Asseveration is you say it with passion. I'm assertive. It is my right to be assertive. It is wrong for me to be unassertive. You say it with passion. That's asseveration. And then perseveration is you say it over and over again until you finally get it. I remember reaching the tipping point when I was working on, like, I feel valuable. I know exactly where I stand. I was standing under a tree in Rancho Bernardo, California, in the San Diego area. I was about to go into a hospital, and I remember I had reached that cognitive tipping point. And when I walked in that hospital, I walked in the hospital knowing that I had value to these people. But it took a lot to get there. I probably had to use some of these neurolinguistics about 5,000 times until I finally I believed them, and they were integrated into my thinking. So these are some, neurolinguistics. You can choose the ones you like. Like, I am not a diminished person. I am a maximized person, serving others with my life. But choose the ones that you like the most and the ones that you can really identify with. But I recommend you write these on cards, either on cards, or you can use what is that app? Gosh, what's the name of the app? Quizlet. Quizlet. The app. Anybody use Quizlet? Where I like the accent on some of these. I don't know if you can actually choose the accent, but this one guy, check this out. Come on.
I am valuable. I am valuable. I bring value to people. I have no right to diminish my value. It is unethical for me not to be of value to every person I come into contact with.
See, that's on Quizlet. And the fellow that did that, he loaded them all up on Quizlet, and you can access his cards in Quizlet. And he listened in the morning, noon, and night. Now, all of us got to do this because we are fighting deception in our own brain. We live in a world of deception. A blanket of deception has covered the whole earth. And we have to throw this blanket off of us It's in our brains. We got to get it out of our thinking, and we have to neutralize this deception that controls our life. So, yeah. Well, I thought she was kind of human to me. Did it sound robot-y to you? You know, I don't know. I don't know if you can choose. You can choose the voice, but yeah, you know. All right. You could record yourself. Yeah, you can record yourself. That may be helpful. Whatever you want to do it. But if you're going to really change a construct in your brain, if you're really going to do that, you have to first identify it, and you have to start building a new construct. Ideas, beliefs, and experiences. Those are the three components to a cognitive construct in your brain. Ideas, beliefs, experiences. I've tackled dozens in my own brain, and I've changed dramatically so many things. Okay, so the way we become more assertive, we have to build an assertive construct. Any questions about this? That's chapter 6, and you can read quite a bit. Yeah. Ideas, experiences, and beliefs. And the way it usually works, if you want to draw this somewhere, the way it works normally is in your brain, the ideas that you come in contact with actually morph into beliefs. And then experiences that you have also morph into beliefs. So if you have planned experiences of assertiveness, the more experience you have, that's going to morph into the belief about assertiveness. Like, I believe it's right to be assertive. I actually believe it's wrong to not be assertive. I mean, if your assertiveness could affect a person's life for the good, would it not be wrong for you not to be assertive with them? You know, Jesus was assertive with the rich young ruler. That was the right thing for him to be. That rich young ruler needed to hear what he needed to hear from Jesus, right? So these are the three components in the changing of it. And now in counseling, what I do is I work with people and changing these constructs, and we go over those, and we work on them, and we engineer experiences and that kind of thing. So this is the path to coming out of unassertiveness and becoming assertive. Now, look at chapter 7 now. This is cool here. Any other questions, though, on chapter 6? Chapter 7. All right. And anticipate the typical challenges that compel assertiveness. Now, here it is. Has anybody ever been blindsided by somebody? And when you're blindsided, you know, and you then can't be assertive because you're thrown off your game, so to speak. And what happens is you end up not making the right decisions, right? So you've got to figure out what are these predetermined things that are going to happen to me. You know, for instance, someone wants you to, they want to borrow money from you. And you only have so much money for the week. But if you lend them the money and you come short and you can't pay your electric bill, you're going to be upset and mad and whatever. So you've got to figure out what you want to do with things like that. You know, people hit me up on the streets. You know what I say? I say, I do not give money. This happened just a couple days ago. I said, look, it's not my habit to give money to people I do not know. And what I tell them, because I know they're meth users anyway, you know, what I tell them is, you give me, I told this one guy, he hit me up for some money. I said, give me the names of 3 people. I want to find out about you. If I find out you're worthy of some help here, I'll help you out. But give me 3 people. Give me their phone numbers right now. Boom, boom. He walked away. He wouldn't give me the phone numbers of people I could talk to confirm who they are and what they want. One time, this one person, they said, I just got out of the hospital. He showed me his wristband. I just got out of the hospital, and we need money to get some gas to go to McKinney. Could you please help? And I said, okay, I'll help you. I gave him some money. I actually broke my own rule. This happened a number of years ago. And gave him money, and then I walked out with it, and I go, whoa, that's a nice car they got there, you know. And then I walked in, and I this lady sitting in the car, and then I introduced myself to her. Then I looked at their gas needle; it was on full. And I went up to the guy. I go, give me my money. give me my money back right now. I said, you just lied to me. You got a full gas tank. You told me you need money to get gas to get up. Because he didn't want money for gas. He wanted money for drugs or something. That's what he wanted money for. Now, you say, well, I'm just going to give whoever asks. That's what Jesus did. No, he did not. He did not give gratuitously. He gave with intentionality. And there was always a point to his giving. There was always a point to it. Now, now Jesus could have gave. He could have stood on a street corner and just healed everybody, and he would have missed what he was supposed to do. I mean, he could have stood on one street corner and healed this person, healed that person, healed another person, and then healed another person, and healed another person, another person, another person, and spent his entire life just healing people. And he would have never discipled the fellows he needed to disciple, and he never wouldn't have went to the cross if that was where he spent his time. So all of us have got to be stewards of our own life, but we have to stewards of our own money. And we have to decide, what tends to compromise my stewardship. So, I remember people used to ask me, hey, can you help me move? Oh, just a few boxes. Well, 6 hours later, and no boxes were ever even packed. And I'm in packing boxes and helping people move, and they're not even taking responsibility for their own move. And here I am spending hours helping them move when, and the other day, if you ever have like a drop emotionally, I had a drop emotionally. And I never get moody. I'm not a moody guy, but I had a drop emotionally. I did. I dropped emotionally and go, oh, this is interesting. I actually feel kind of down. Interesting. And then usually when you have a drop emotionally is because it's attached to an existential issue. And it was attached to an existential issue. And what it was is I started thinking about how I probably wasted a good, I probably wasted a good decade or two. Yeah, I'm 65 years old. If I was to really honestly analyze this thing, I'm confident I wasted at least a decade, possibly two. Spending time on things that really weren't the best, spending time on stuff if I invested my time in other ways, would have produced a whole lot more. I mean, I went down some rabbit trails, wasted 2 or 3 years here, 3 or 4 years there. Now, I'm not saying I think God's been good to me, and he has blessed me and led me in many ways. Education was a path for me out of the ghetto of New Jersey. And I'm happy that, I was able to go to the schools I went to. But I think had I been on to some of this stuff that I'm sharing with you, I think there would have been a lot of stuff I wouldn't have done. And there would have been a lot of directions I would have taken that would have been much more redemptive. Why am I mentioning that? I don't know why in the world. Oh, yeah, predetermined responses here. We have no time to waste. I guess that's the point. You don't have any time to waste. Pretty soon you're going to be 65 years old. You're going, whoa, that's old, man. Like, that's old. Like, I'm saying it's old. I'm going, wow, I'm old, man. 65? You got to be kidding me. I'm 65. No way am I 65. But I am. But you don't have any time to waste. But people will waste your time. I remember this guy, he kept saying, Alan, his name's Dennis. Dennis kept saying, Alan, why don't you go fishing with me? I said, Dennis, do I look like a guy who has time to go fishing? I don't have time to go fishing, If I'm going to fish, I'm going to go fish with my grandkids or my wife. I'm not going to fish with him on some bank, with smelly fish. And, I don't have time for fishing. Now, you can go with him. I'll tell Dennis, you want to fish with, do you want to go with him? You can. Dennis has got plenty of people to fish with, okay? I don't have time to fish. But if you want to fish, okay, maybe that's your nice little meditation time and everything like that. But, all of us got to figure out how to be a steward with our own life. Now, you thought I was a meanie. Didn't you think I was a meanie to Dennis?
To spend time with you.
Well, but see, the question is, he wants to spend time with me, but do I want to spend time with him?
That
See?
is the question. I'm scared of
That is the question. It really is the question. Because I was guilt-tripped, and I'm telling you right now, that's why I had that drop in mood, But I pulled myself out. It only took 2 hours. I was out of it, People want to spend time with you, but the question is, do you want to spend time with them? In being a good steward with your life, you got to figure out, do I want to spend time with them? See? Just because someone wants to be, Dennis has got his wife, he got a bunch of people he can spend time with. But would be, honestly, I mean, just to be truthful with you, my time spent with Dennis would essentially be a waste of time, essentially, versus my time with some other people that I could invest in different ways. He just wanted a buddy. I don't have time for buddies. I swear I don't have time for buddies. I have time for my wife. I have time for my sons, my daughter, my grandkids. And, you know, I do have one friend from high school years, Steve, and I call him every now and then, and we connect. But you've got to figure it out on your own. If you think that you can give yourself to every person's request, you're going to go mad. You're going to go mad. And you've got to figure out what is the best use of my time, with whom, in what situations, or you'll gobble up 20 years. And when you hit 65, you're going to go, wow, I wasted 10 years. I remember I can just tell you story after story where I invested so much time in some people, but it was a waste of my time. You got to figure that one out. So, all right. Are you okay? You're okay? Okay.
I'm okay.
You're okay. Okay. We got a lot to break down. We got to break this down a little. No, I have time. Look, you got to figure out your time. I have time to write books. I got time to do that. I have time to do seminars. This, to me, is most meaningful. Being with people in this sitting on the banks, fishing. I don't even like fishing. You know, why in the heck would I fish? Well, what am I? Oh, okay, I'll rub his shoulders while he's fishing. You know, okay, there's a better use of my time. You know. Can God use me?
Yeah, God calls us to talk to you about something. God calls us to make meaningful friendships, not just to devote.
I am glad you guys are in this seminar on assertiveness. I am so glad you are in this seminar because, again, you have to determine what is the best use of your time and what you want to do with your life, what you really want to do with your life. Gosh, you know, I don't want to get stuck on this point, but hey, maybe during the break we'll talk about it a little bit more, okay? Okay, so here's the blindsided. Being blindsided by somebody can really knock you off course. So the question is figuring out how you're blindsided. For instance, someone wants you to contribute to a worthy cause. How do you respond? You can say, I have made commitments for the year, contact me next year, I will consider how to give to the cause. Okay, for example, in Dallas, especially in Dallas, not so much in Fort Worth, but in Dallas, you drive up, you're at your stoplight there, and then guys in uniforms with buckets come, and they want you to give to their cause. You know what I say to them? I say, give me your website. I want to find out about your ministry. If I feel led, I will give to your ministry. I support 6 ministries, for Pete's sake, and Focus is one of them. Can't give to every ministry. And I don't know how this organization is using their money, right? You're finite when it comes to money. You don't have all the money in the world. You're finite. You've got to be very wise with who you give money to. And so that's my approach to it. A person wants to monopolize your time. I say, I have about 5 minutes to talk right now. That's what I tell people. And that's true. I usually have about 5 minutes to talk to someone. All right? Or you're shopping and someone feels pressured to buy something in the store. Just shopping, right? Someone knocks on your door. They want to come in, borrow your phone or show you a product, sell you something. You say, I do not answer the door for strangers. You know? In New Jersey, they say, who are you? Did I call you? Get out of here. Scram. That's how they handle it in New Jersey. When I was a kid and I was I'd sell cards, I'd sell candles. I tried to sell so much to make money. Every third of the door in New Jersey, every third door, I'd knock on the door. They'd say, who are you, kid? Did I call for you? Get out of here, scram. Then I go, another third door. Who are you? Get out of here, kid. I didn't call you, scram. That's how they, so anyhow. Okay, so how about this? You're single, a person is interested in asking you out or pursuing a romantic relationship and you are not interested. Do you just go out with them, you know? And what do you do with that? You know, I've told some people, I do not gratuitously date. I kiss dating goodbye. I'm intentional about the kind of person who fits my life, and right now I'm exploring an individual or whatever. I told one, here, you ready for this one? This girl. she was getting hit on. Well, she was homeschooled most her life, right? So she goes to this big public high school here in the DFW area. She gets hit on. The guy, she goes, "Oh, I like your cell phone. Can I see it?" You know what the guy said to her? "Yeah, if you'll give me a blank blank." She was so shocked. She was so shocked. And that day, twice, she got hit on sexually. So I'm her counselor, right? We talked about it. I said, okay, this is what you're going to say. I want you to practice it 1,000 times. Well, not 1,000, 500 times. I said, here it is. When that happens, you say, you know, you're a depraved fella. And if you don't know what depravity means, look it up in a dictionary and get an education. Have a nice day. She actually used that. She got that down, and she actually used it, and she has had no problem since then. Word got around, you don't mess with that girl. So that's her predetermined response when she gets hit on sexually. You know, you're a depraved fella, and you need God. And if you don't know what the word depravity means, look it up in the dictionary, get an education. Have a nice day. And if you can say it East Coast, it'll even be better. So anyhow, she's done that. That's her line, and that's the line she uses rather than, you know? So a strong predetermined response, all right? Any ones that you guys get hit on with and you get kind of, you don't know how to respond? Anybody got one? Oh, yeah. That's a good one. I like that one. Just, you know, very good. I love that. All right, cool. All right, that's a good one. All right, so let's look at chapter 7 then. The idea of proactive with your life, establish momentum. So if there's momentum with your life, you're not going to be thrown off course, but you have to have momentum. Your life is moving in this direction with great momentum. You don't want to get knocked off course. The ways to develop this momentum is, if you look on the diagram there on page 67, is you see schedule, priorities, boundaries, goals, good routine. By establishing a schedule, how many run by a schedule? Does everybody run by a schedule? Okay. Is that schedule important to you? Yes. What happens when your schedule is interrupted? Does it kind of throw you off a bit? Okay. And most of you are in school, right? So you got strict schedules, right? Pretty strict schedules. Well, not now, it's summertime, I guess. But, you know, scheduling, what is scheduling? Scheduling is predetermined wisdom. You're determining that I'm going to be wise with the use of my time. Establishing priorities. Keep yourself, priorities keep you from wasting time on trivial things. So establishing priorities, establishing boundaries with people. That's important. And then goals that are going to move your life forward. And even writing those goals out. A study in Harvard showed that those that tended to write out their goals tended to achieve their goals. Those who wrote out nothing really achieved almost nothing. So it's writing became a distinctive feature of people who achieved, writing out your goals. You know, if you don't maintain momentum with your life, guess what happens? What happens to a plane that doesn't maintain momentum? It starts losing altitude and then it crashes, right? And so you want to maintain momentum because your life is a valuable thing to be used to the glory of God. And so these goals that you have are, you know, hopefully they're consecrated goals. This is a goal before God Almighty. Now I've had people that go, I want to get a degree in such and such. And they end up being so taken off course and not studying, and because they're pulled off the direction of what they're supposed to accomplish, they end up not achieving that goals, maybe in a timely manner. So you've got to stick with your goals and then set a good routine. So I don't know about your routines, but if you establish a good routine, you get a good momentum going with your life, but people can't interrupt that if you have a good routine. So I remember someone was I work out in the morning, you know. I have a little workout. It's not a long workout. It's just a little workout I do every morning, maybe 20 to 30 minutes. So if people are going to call me, I'm not going to get off that routine, but I will accept the call, or I will do a text while I'm on my elliptical. So while I'm on my elliptical, I can actually text, and I'm actually doing a workout where I can do that. So you can accommodate things as you're establishing your routine, but you got to be smart about it and how to best achieve what you need to achieve. Okay, assertiveness can work with a life that has momentum. All right. Any questions? Because you won't be thrown off course. Any questions about this? All right. All right. Uh-oh, wrong thing. Uh-oh, what did I do, Amy? Okay, wait a minute. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. What did I do? Oh, there it is. I'm back. Okay. All right, I'm back. All right, let's look at let's look at the next chapter, chapter 9. Being a responder, not a reactor. Reacting, again, that goes with emotional regulation. If we tend to react, we tend to not do as well in situations. But being a responder is about assertiveness. So reacting, you see, is about aggression. You see on page 69, the column on the left, reactive with anger, impatience, irritability, rudeness, abrasiveness, lashing out, meanness, judgment, condemnation, subjectivity, emotionality. But responding is about assertiveness. I will respond assertively with appropriate anger. There's a time to be angry. The Bible says Jesus got angry, right? And he was appropriate in his anger. But with an appropriate anger, love, tough love, gentleness, patience, courtesy, respect, wisdom, firmness, understanding, grace. Grace is a powerful way to respond to people. Also, that number 10 point, there's nothing there. Put objectivism/rationalism. Objectivism/rationalism. It's supposed to be there, but it wasn't there for some reason. We'll get in the next print. Objectivism, rationalism. So learning how to respond versus react. And one area where this is really a problem is in anger. So what happens, let me show this to you. When a situation XYZ causes us to get all worked up emotionally, we have to determine, am I going to respond or am I going to react? There's two ways that you respond in anger. You ready what they are? There are two ways. One is you respond by dropping it. You just drop it. So it's not worth it, drop it. I told this fellow, I said, you got to get a hold of your anger. This guy was a counseling, right? He's a big buff guy, weightlifter and everything. So you got to get a handle of that anger. You know what happened to him? He hobbled up to counseling one day. I go, oh, what, you sprained your ankle? Oh, no, I got shot in a road rage thing. Literally, his truck got shot with 4 bullets. And I know, and according to what I found out about the whole thing, is he got into this big kind of imbroglio with another fella, and the fella just pulled out a gun. Well, they caught the guy. You know why? Because there was a dog. It was a certain kind of truck, and there was a dog that was attached to the back of the truck, a certain kind of dog. So when they started combing neighborhoods trying to find this guy, they found the dog still on the truck, and that's how they got this guy, right? But you see, look, come on, brother. What is good is that going to do? Road rage, come on. So responding, now he hadn't learned assertiveness yet, see? He just is reactive. So he reacted in anger, he gets 4 bullets, and the bullet, just 1 bullet hit him in the leg. So just one, that's all. He could have got hit, he could have, he got hit in the head, man, with a bullet. That would have done a whole lot more damage. The other, so you got one way is you simply drop it. The other way in your anger is you assert. You assert with anger. And because it's the right thing to do. When this lady was served, she wasn't quite served the right potato in Chicago, at a hotel in Chicago. So she said, no, I did not order this potato this way. I want it this way. So the chef was a little miffed with her. And what he did is he sliced that thing up, just sliced it up, and then gave it back to her. And she went, what is this? And she took a bite of it and she goes, whoa, this is good. Hey, everybody, try this. This is great. That was the beginning of the potato chip. You could Google it yourself. That was the beginning of that was the first potato chip. It happened out of a lady becoming assertive, miffed over her potato. That's exactly how that happened. You can Google it and verify all this. But asserting in anger it is the right thing to do. Like when when John Walsh's son was abducted and murdered by a pedophile, John Walsh was enraged when he found out that, they wouldn't search for a kid for like 48 hours, but yet if a car was stolen, they would immediately search for the stolen car. And timing is very important when there's an abduction. And they found his head in a canal in Florida. He had been beheaded. The guy had beheaded this little 6-year-old boy. But Mr. Walsh was enraged. He was enraged at a society that allowed such evil. And he was solely responsible, him and a number of people he mobilized to actually bring about the Missing Children Exploitation Act in Congress. And then, he actually started America's Most Wanted. And I remember when I first read the story of the Adam Walsh story, it was in, not a Reader's Digest, a Guidepost magazine. It was just his story, telling his story. And I was so moved, I went in my office, I bawled like a baby. I couldn't stop crying. I was just so deeply, deeply moved by this article and what Mr. Walsh and his wife had went through. I also read something he wrote 10 years later. You know what it's called? Still Enraged. Still Enraged. I believe there is an anger, 450 times in the Bible God is angry. I think we've got to be angry over evil and over injustice. But it's in an assertive way. Now, there's two ways that we can mismanage anger, and that's through suppression or repression, and the other is by open aggression, just by open aggression. Now, the only way, I'm telling you, the only way out of this, guys, the only way is through assertiveness. If you do not learn assertiveness, you won't be able to handle your own anger. You just won't be able to do it because you won't have the best option. You won't have the best options available for you. You'll just repress it or suppress it. And those two are different. Suppression is more consciously, you'll suppress it. Repression is more subconsciously, you just take it, and then you become depressed. Because you're not really feeling like a real human being. Or there's open aggression, but that doesn't work either. It's very ineffective. But it's through assertiveness that you have I can get angry at certain points, but it's good anger. It's good anger. And there's times, mostly, just drop it. It's not worth it. So you assertively drop anger. Because you say, it's just not worth it, just not worth it. See? So this will help you with anger, okay? Assertiveness will help you with anger. So learning to be a responder. Now, one of the neurolinguistics you must surely say is, I'm a responder, not a reactor. And I have people say that, I'm a responder, not a reactor. You say it 1,000 times. I'm a responder, not a reactor. I'm a responder, not a reactor. You know what I am? I'm a responder. I'm not a reactor. You got to say that over and over and over again until you live by that. I'm a responder, not a reactor. It's on your brain cell. You're a responder. You're not a reactor. Okay? All right. Any questions about any of this? You all still good? All right. Let's do this. Let's cover one more chapter, then we'll take a little break. How's that sound? Okay, one more chapter, then a break. Communicating assertively. Look on page 73. First, utilize particular assertive statements in talking with someone and compel a situation. Like, for instance, Jessica, if I said, now let me be clear. That is that sets me up to be assertive with her by saying, Jessica, let me be clear, right? You know, if I say, Amy, there's something important I need to talk to you about, right? That sets me up to share something important I need to talk to her about, right? Okay? So we need to utilize certain phrases that set us up to be assertive. So look on page 74. You see those? Now, some of them are a little mild and some not so mild, but like, I need to cut to the chase. I need to talk to you. I need to cut to the chase. Sometimes you need to say that to some people. Or I need to be honest with you. I really don't want to go to Burger King, you know. I really want to go to McDonald's. Just being honest, that's all, just being honest, you know. Or, you know, we need to have a frank discussion. We just need to have a frank discussion. That sets you up to be assertive. Now, I've used all these lines. Or I have some perspectives that are important for you, which I think are helpful and important here. Or I feel compelled to tell you the truth. So communicating assertively, you've got to be an active listener to do that. Look at, avoid the word, look at the fourth point. Avoid such words as whatever you decide. Stop that. Don't use whatever you decide. Stop that. You're not training yourself to be assertive when you say, well, whatever you want, or whatever, or I don't care. No, if you have an opinion, share your opinion. Start getting used to sharing your perspectives. And here's one. If you're up against a situation where someone's trying to convince you otherwise about something, you say, well, look, nevertheless, this is what I've decided. Dennis, nevertheless, I'm not going fishing. And if he comes on with, but this, and but that, and but this, and here we go, and what about that? So nevertheless, Dennis, I'm not going fishing, all right? With you, all right? All right. And then you may need to defer the decision. If the heat's on, you may say, you know, I need to confirm with, you know, with my wife, or I need to check with my father. I told my son when he was younger, because he'd get ripped off. He'd take his car to these places, and they'd charge him $500 for a tire or something like that. I said, Austin, look, when you go to these places, just say, I need to talk to my father first before I make the decision. And, you know, and I'll say, look, it's not like I'm an auto mechanic, but I do know about cars, you know. And I say, Austin, they're charging you probably $200 more than you should even be charged for that. Just tell them, no, I'm sorry, we can't get this service done here. But that's one way to give you some time to defer the decision, and then utilize writing as a means to communicate assertively, like text, emails. You know, the pen is mightier than the sword. Has anyone ever heard that statement before? Communicating in words, and then take an objective approach. All right, well, let me share this with you. This is very significant. Don't miss this, okay? All right, so here, let me give you an example between assertive and subjective. Some of you have been in counseling with me will know this. Let's say here's this tree, right? Here's this tree, and it has no fruit. So you fixate on the tree with no fruit, and it whacks you out, right? It whacks you out. You're fixated on that tree with no fruit on it. Now, we're using this as a metaphor, of course. So you take it personal. That tree doesn't like me. Or you read into why that tree is there. You assume some things. Or you worry about that tree. Or you magnify, there's no trees with fruit on them. Or you catastrophize, we're all going to starve to death. There's no trees with fruit on them. See, these are called subjectivisms. All these are called subjectivisms. But if you look beyond that tree, just 1 mile up the road, guess what? There's 5,000 trees with fruit on them. So why in the world are you all freaked out over this one tree with no fruit on them? So if you look up to God, God says, come on, I'll give you 1 million trees with fruit on them. Now, this is called objectivism. This is called objectivism. And you will be superbly, now get this, listen to me, it's real important. You will be superbly objective if you combine theology, That is the God factor, theology plus the facts. The facts are there's 5,000 trees right over there, 1 mile up the road. Facts can allow you to become objective, but to be superbly objective, you must bring theology into it. Theology plus the facts, because theology gives you the broader view. You're able to see clearer and broader with theology. So you bring theology plus the facts, and you become superbly objective. This will aid you in being assertive, because you can be assertive in an objective way. And you say, okay, let's look at the facts here, versus becoming wildly emotional. Or let's bring in some theological perspectives on this thing here. You know, you're able to be superbly assertive when you have on your tool belt objectivism. You will not do very well in being assertive if you are highly subjective. Okay, so it's incumbent upon you to become objective as a mechanism for your assertiveness. Okay. Just like being secure is ground zero for assertiveness, objectivism is one of your best tools to be assertive with people. And I deal a lot in this orange book on that. I cover a lot of stuff on objectives, a whole chapter on that. All right, any questions up to this point about this? All right, now let me mention about emotional honesty, and then we'll take a break. Being part of assertive is being emotionally honest with people. Now, there's emotional dishonesty. So look on page 77, the diagram there. See, if you're emotionally dishonest, you fail to serve others, you fail to communicate, it complicates life, and you sell your soul. And it might make you angry, too. I remember when Arby's was introducing a meatball sandwich. I was so thrilled. Man, I lived on meatball sandwiches in New Jersey and Philadelphia. We love meatball sandwiches. We have the best meatball sandwiches in America. And so Arby's was introducing the meatball sandwich. I was so excited. So I was waiting for the date. I couldn't wait until it came, the date that the meatball sandwich would be introduced. So I go in the first day that it was introduced, I went into an Arby's and I had the meatball sandwich. And the manager was there. Actually, he was at the counter, and I told him, I love meatball sandwiches. I grew up on meatball sandwiches. I am so excited that Arby's has introduced the meatball sandwich into their menu. And so I get the meatball sandwich. I go back. It is the worst meatball sandwich I have ever had in my entire life. It was horrible. It was horrible. It was horrible. I can't tell you how horrible it was. I couldn't even eat it. I mostly ate the bread. I couldn't eat the meatballs. You know? It was just horrible. Well, guess who comes back to the place? Comes back to where I'm sitting? The manager. And he's going, oh, how do you like the meatball sandwich? And I was emotionally dishonest. I said, oh, it's okay. Yeah, it was okay. It was horrible. Look at 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, they take the meatball sandwich off of the menu because they somehow realized other people were emotionally honest and probably told their managers, don't do it. I could have helped this manager. Do you see how I could have helped him? I could, sir, look, I'm from Philly, New Jersey. We have the best meatball sandwiches on the earth. This is horrible, sir. Absolutely horrible. You call up corporate, you tell them to take it away. You might have become one of the leading managers in Arby's had I helped him to do that, right? So, you see, me being emotionally dishonest did not help him, right? Didn't help me, for sure. You know, I need some kind of release. Emotional honesty would have helped. But in emotional honesty, you see, it serves others, it communicates clearly, it simplifies life, it blesses your soul. I remember there was a fellow, he was a minister, a great guy. He's one of the best servants in the kingdom, great guy. Only one problem, he had the worst breath west of the Mississippi. Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. And you know, gosh, I love the guy. It was a great growing church and everything like that. But I actually turned it into a case study. I started analyzing how people kind of related to them, but you could always see they would always step back like a foot, you know, and everything. And I could barely talk to them on a Sunday morning. Oh my goodness, I don't know. Did you not brush your teeth, for peace sakes? You know, coffee or whatever. It was horrible. But you know, I never said a word to him. I feel bad about that. To this day, I feel bad. I think I could have helped him because it must have had some effect. Some effect. Now, people, mature Christians probably, you know, they overlooked it, I understand, you know, but maybe some didn't, you know, but I could have helped them. So now I don't think we need, if we're thinking, you know, something that it's not necessarily the best thing to be, to tell someone what you're thinking, you know, like, oh, I hate that shirt or something else, you know. I think, but when there's a point, when a point comes that you can actually serve and help somebody, emotional honesty is one of the best things, right? And if someone asks your opinion about something, I think really it may be the best thing to share with them emotionally. I mean, to be honest with them, what you really think, okay? Now, I call these wow experiences, bottom of page 77. We need to have wow experiences. And as assertiveness, it's a wonderful thing to be able to bless someone. It becomes a wow experience. Wow, I helped you by being assertive with you. So I want to encourage you to communicate assertively. Now, let's take a break, and then we'll hit these last points, and we'll wrap it up. We might wrap it up a little bit earlier because I did rip through this thing, but these last points are very important. I mean, they're some of the best points on assertiveness, so don't leave prematurely. These are some of the best points on assertiveness, okay? So let's take a break, and then we'll have about, we'll get out of here at 9 o'clock. How's that sound? All right? All right? Okay. All right. All right. Well, if you guys have any questions, we'll answer those as well, okay? All right. And we may get out a little bit early tonight, which would be fine. I don't know about you. I got a jam-packed day tomorrow. So a couple questions. First of all, the wow experience. We'll get with the clarity question, but tell about your experience. He had a wow experience where he was assertive, and he actually shocked himself that he was so assertive. He couldn't believe it.
So I'm at,
And you shocked yourself by speaking, confronting that.
yeah, and I mean, it extended itself because I was on we went out after our business.
Yeah, smooths over it.
Talking to him about that stuff rather than. He actually took it very well. He said he does understand that.
Very good.
Just to say that what you've been saying about that you're failing yourself and others.
By not being assertive.
Yeah, very, that's probably
Yeah.
really strong.
Yeah, and the more you get these wow experiences under your belt, the better you feel, and you get comfortable. I would be so uncomfortable being unassertive now, whereas I was comfortable being unassertive. You know, you have that cognitive tipping point. Now I would be uncomfortable not being assertive in situations, right? So you all can get there. You can get there, all right? Feel something, yeah. Like, like that, right? Yeah. It almost, you see, if you build up sufficiently the construct in your brain on assertiveness, it's a brain cell by brain cell by brain cell by brain cell by brain, and you build it up sufficiently, you will then function by default. You know what function by default is? You just function by default. It's just almost automatic. You hardly even think about it. Hardly even think about it. You function by default. And that's why you got to get scriptures built in your brain, neurolinguistics, and these wow experiences that you have until you build this construct strong, and you will function by default. All right. Brother, ask about the clarity question there. Okay. Right. Okay. Very good question. Whenever we get blindsided, our body reacts and cortisol levels amp up, and you can hardly think. You can't even think. You can't think clearly. You can't speak clearly. That's why your first thing is to develop predetermined responses until you get those down really good, and you won't have these high infusions of cortisol, which then creates confusion in your thinking. You can't think straight, you know. So that would be the first thing. The second would be objectivism. That if you start thinking objectively, if you start practicing objectivism, and by the way, everyone here should be tested out. All of you, I've tested a few of you guys out, but almost everyone should be tested out with at least a Taylor-Johnson temperament analysis. What that would show is how assertive or unassertive you are. It will also show how objective or subjective you are. If you're highly subjective, it's going to be very difficult to be assertive because you're going to be too emotional. And you won't have clarity. It'll just be too emotional. You'll get caught up in magnifying, catastrophizing, or worrying about something. You just will not be able to get clarity. But clarity is an important thing. Clarity is very important in being assertive with someone. And so I say you've got to at least work on predetermined responses, but I say secondly, you've got to really work hard at becoming objective and not subjective. Now, there's a whole approach to this, and that's why I think if you can get my orange book, that would be real helpful to you, because you have to first renounce your subjectivisms. Every one of us has a subjectivism. You know what? One of them, I used to create fictitious scenarios in my mind. That's a subjectivism. Our minds can create many movies that could win awards, I'm sure. But these movies that go on in our head about what someone's doing or what they're doing, and they're not doing anything that we're thinking, for the most part, because these movies are generally negative in our head. But that's a subjectivism, and I have had to say, okay, stop it, Alan. That's fictitious scenarios. That's what you're doing, fictitious scenarios. Stop it, stop it. The misattribution of motives. Something happens, we immediately attach a motive to what someone's doing. If we tend to do that, we got to say, stop it. I don't misattribute motives. I'm going to find out what the real motive is. So we've got to really work on being objective. I remember one time I cleaned out the garage in San Diego. I said, Tamara, you're going to be able to get your car in here. I'm going to be able to get my car in here. Both of us will be able to get our cars in the garage. And I was so excited because everyone was getting a car. All my kids were driving now, and they were getting cars. Landon had a car, Elliot had a car, Austin had a car, and then we had a niece and nephew who lived with us. One of them had a car, and so we had cars everywhere. It's like our place was. So this was very important for Tamara and I to get both of our cars in there. So Monday comes along, and the garage door goes up. I hit the garage door opener, garage door goes up, and guess what? There's Tamara's car parked at a 45-degree angle. I go, what the heck? What the heck? I just yesterday told her that we would both be able to get our cars in the garage, and I would park here, she would park here. What is this? So I started going through all this subjectivism in my mind, but I said, okay, Alan, stop it. Find out why she parked her car at a 45-degree angle. I calmed myself down. I did not go in the house guns blazing. I simply said, Tamara, remember we had talked about both our cars being parked in the garage? Why is the car parked at a 45-degree angle? She goes, oh, Alan, I'm so sorry. I had to go to the bathroom. I just parked my car in as quick as I could in there. I had to go to the bathroom. I go, oh, fine, no problem. We'll get it all straightened out. But you see, what was the real reason the car was parked at a 45-degree angle? She had to go to the bathroom. Not she's trying to defy me, or she's trying to anger me. No. So you see, we are highly subjective. We're more subjective than we realize. We've got to pull out of our subjectivism. We've got to pull out of it, because it'll keep us an emotional wreck, and we're never going to gain the clarity with people and in situations, and thus we're never going to be able to be assertive because we're so worked up, so emotional about things, So objectivism is the way to get to clarity and to find clarity in situations. And it's marvelous. When you comport yourself among people in objective ways, you are a wonderful assessor of things, and you're able to serve people very, very, very well. So you've got to maintain your objectivism, all right? Okay, so here we go. You ready for this one? This is good. This is chapter, the next one here, is really good. Let's see, that's chapter 11, correct? Yeah, capture the moral spiritual high ground. To be assertive, in a way, that's what you did, Zach. You captured the moral spiritual high ground when you said that is not a way to speak about ladies. That's moral spiritual high ground. You can be superbly assertive through moral spiritual high ground. So here's this person down here, right? And they're on lower ground. And they're doing something crazy on lower ground. So you have to find the spiritual, moral high ground up here. And what you do is rather than condemn them on lower ground, what you do is you challenge them to higher ground. That's what Jesus did with the guys who had this woman caught in adultery. He said, he was without sin. Let him be the first to cast a stone. See, he had the moral spiritual high ground. He challenged the person to the moral spiritual high ground. Now, there's all kinds of possibilities with this. You know, Dr. Dobson, I remember, tells the story of how he was working in a flower shop as a younger fella, and guy came in and was irate. He was mad about his order and everything. And Dobson remembered this scripture about a gentle answer turns away wrath. And he was able to actually get to moral spiritual high ground and actually say to the man, sir, I don't know where you're at as a believer or Christian, but you know the Bible says that the anger of man does not achieve the righteous life God desires. That was powerful for Dr. Dobson. You know Dr. Dobson. You know do you know who he is? He's a famed clinical psychologist. He was on 600 radio stations in America at one time. Guy was phenomenal. He's written many, many books. But it is a powerful thing to actually challenge the person to moral spiritual high ground versus to condemn them on lower ground. Now, it's easy to condemn people on lower ground and to throw rocks on people on lower ground, but you're not doing them any good. The best thing to be assertive is you challenge them to moral, spiritual high ground, and that is one of the best ways to be assertive. So you look on page 80, I have these situations. Okay, I have that one right there. A person is displaying anger toward you. The anger of man does not achieve the righteous life that God desires. Oh, people are gossiping. This is what Eleanor Roosevelt, you know, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, you know, if she did this, she would, people would be gossiping in Washington, and she would say, you know, ladies, great minds talk about ideas. Average minds talk about events. Small minds talk about people. Have a nice day. And she would walk away. That's what Eleanor Roosevelt would do. Or a spouse is not treating you well. And I've seen this where spouse will stay out till 1 or 2 in the morning and the wife is freaking out. And husband, you are not being kind to me. I need you to be kind. It is unkind for you not to come home and stay out late at night. So appealing to kindness. See, I got this from someone, they used to be a focus girl, and I remember she said in customer care service, this is hers, I will help you, but you have to be nice to me in order for this to work well for your benefit and my ability to work for you. So that was her line, and because in customer service, she would be getting ripped by these people, and she would appeal to them, look, I need you to be nice to me. And, you know, really, this is a pretty effective way. And look at the top of page 80. Do you see the different themes? The theme of kindness or the theme of responsibility. What is the thing to be responsible? We must be responsible. This is what we must be responsible here, sir. It's irresponsibility or respect and honor, consecrated intellect, appealing to consecrated intellect. Look, I told a fella, this guy was a beggar. He came to Southwest. He came to Southwest Church. I gave him a hamburger one time, and I talked with him a bit. He came a second time. I saw him. He was in the foyer. And he was wanting food. And he was begging. He was, basically he's begging, wanting money or wanting food. I said, look, sir, you were made for something higher than begging. You were made in God's image. You were made for dignity. You were made to be a dignified man. Let's figure out how you can get your life together and you cease from begging. You were not made to be a beggar. So I'm going to go into service now. Come on into the service, after service, and I'll take you out to Brahms. We'll have a hamburger together, right? I'd already taken him to a hamburger weeks before that. I'd already taken him to a hamburger, had some talked with him a bit. But when I got out, he wasn't there. But that was kind of sad, because I feel like some people are going to respond, some people are not, but to higher ground. Higher ground. Like, sir, you weren't made for the phony high. You were made for the authentic high. This smoking dope, that's phony baloney. It's a phony high. You were made for something so much better. You were made for the authentic high. That's what you were made for, not the phony high. I have several people, about 3 or 4 people are not drinking. Now, I'm not drinking for 2018, not because I have an alcohol problem. I don't have an alcohol problem. But I'm not drinking for 2018 because I got several people. I said, join me in a vow, no alcohol for 2018. None, not a drop. I got several people who are doing that right now. And I'm trying to get them to buy into the authentic high. God is the authentic high. Getting drunk is the phony high. Or love, just on the basis of love. This is not love. You're made for love. You were made to love people. This is not love. See, the idea of wisdom. Appealing to wisdom, appealing to humility, appealing to holiness, appealing to justice, appealing to self-control, appealing to gratitude, appealing to faithfulness, appealing to consideration. I'm telling you, this is one of the most effective ways to be assertive. Getting to moral, spiritual high ground and then challenging that person to higher ground. You can be assertive with almost everybody through this. And this is what Jesus did. He went to moral, spiritual high ground. He challenged everybody through moral, spiritual high ground. Well, it's one of his approaches anyway. Anyhow, it's a good chapter. You need to read it. All right. Any questions? Any questions about this? Moral, spiritual high ground. All right. This one, I love this one. This is good. This is really good. You're going to love this one. All right. I don't have a draw this. You might want to draw this on the white page opposite page 83. This is real cool. In your head, the concepts in your head are going to affect your chemistry with people. Concepts affect chemistry. I'm telling you, this is one of the most imperative things to realize. If the chemistry with people is bad, guess what? The concepts are probably bad. Bad concepts, bad chemistry. Wrong concepts, wrong chemistry. But you get the right concepts going, it creates the right chemistry with other people. So what I have found is you can be marvelously assertive if you get these concepts integrated into your thinking and you function out of these concepts. And some of the most powerful concepts, I believe, are these. Being a lover of people. Just a lover, be a lover of people. You love people. It's one of the most powerful concepts going. My old professor used to say, you can tell anybody anything if they really believe you love them. Isn't that interesting? You can tell anybody anything if they really believe you love them. That it's out of love that you can tell anybody anything. And if they believe you love them. So being a lover of people allows you to be assertive in so many ways. Being a servant to people. I'm your servant. Look at the difference between servant and doormat. You see the difference? I've experienced the doormat in my years of unassertiveness, but no more. See the difference between the servant is a strong idea. It's a higher concept. The doormat is a weak idea. It's a lower concept. When I first came into Christianity, I hated the word servant because I thought servant was being someone's doormat. So I hated the word. I thought, oh, servant. Oh, sir, I dig Jesus. I don't know if I dig servant. Servant, really? Servant? I must serve people? Really, really, you know. I couldn't get into it. I couldn't get into the concept. Well, I didn't understand the concept. That's why. I was thinking doormat. No, doormat and servant, two different things. In fact, servant is a powerful thing. You take the best of yourself and you pour it out and you serve other people, taking the best of yourself. Now, sometimes you have to take the least of yourself because you got to move chairs around and set things up. That's the least. But there's the best of you. There's the least of you and there's the best of you. But you got to find the best of you and pour that out and serve other people. And when you do that, you have a powerful effect upon people. Look at this. The servant is proactive with his or her life. The doormat tends to be passive. The servant is useful to others. Doormat's used by others. See, the servant is self-controlled. The doormat's controlled by others. I'm on page 85, the chart there. The servant maximizes self. The doormat minimizes self. You see, doormat's not a good idea. Good servant, steward with your life, poor steward. Joy in being a servant, misery, unhappy in being a doormat. Responsible with life, irresponsible with life. Growth as a servant, no growth by being a doormat. Significance by being a servant, insignificance by being a doormat. Strong boundaries, the servant has strong boundaries. The doormat, no weak or no boundaries. The servant is strategic. The doormat is haphazard. So the idea of servant is a strong idea that will allow you to be so assertive with people by being their servant. You enter into their lives in the most marvelous ways. And then this last one, enjoyer of people. You move among people as an enjoyer of people, not a people pleaser. Because people pleasing, I used to do people pleasing. Anybody here done people pleasing? I've done people pleasing. Yeah, it doesn't work well, does it? It doesn't work well. It's kind of being more doormat. But being an enjoyer of people is a wonderful thing. Let me tell you about a fellow. He went to Focus, right? This was years ago. I counseled this guy years ago. I wonder if I should mention his name. Anyhow, I don't think he would mind, because I did mention his name one time at a Focus event. So, his name's Paul. I'll just tell you that. And he would go into the hospital, and he was so intimidated by doctors and nurses and social workers. He had an undergraduate degree in nutrition, and so he was in this hospital working this job. But he was on the low rung of the ladder. And so he came to me, and he's just not feeling it. He's feeling bad about why he can't seem to be calm and why he was so uptight being in that hospital. I said, Paul, you're like a scared little rabbit in the weeds, man. You got to snap out of that, man. You're not a scared little rabbit in the weeds. You got the wrong concept. You go in that hospital, you are a lover of all these people. You walk in out, I'm a lover. You love all these people. You go in there as a lover. You go in there as a servant. You're here to serve these people. You go in there as an enjoyer of people. But I say here, now, you go in there as a learner. You don't have to know it all. You want everyone to think you know stuff, but no, you don't know it all. Just go in there as a learner and learn from all these people and stop comparing yourself to other people. But you're a learner. I said, now, you're going to get concept cards. So you're going to have concept cards. I want you to get a card. I want you to look at that concept card. Lover. What does that mean, lover of people? Write on the back all your reflections. I'm a lover of people, just like Jesus. This idea of servant. Okay, I'm a servant. That's what I'm going to be to these people. When I go to the hospital, I'm a servant. That's it. Any new ideas you have as you're meditating on an idea, write it on the back of the card. I'm an enjoyer of people. I'm not a people pleaser. I'm an enjoyer of people. What does it mean to enjoy people? And thoughts about enjoying people. Boy, you can find something good in everybody. I'm going to enjoy that about people, you know. You know what he did? It was amazing. He in his car, he'd go over his concept cards before he went into the hospital. And then he would pray before he went into the hospital. He'd pray, God, help me to be what I need to be to these people. And you know that thing turned around in no time. He was a changed person. As he functioned by concept, the concepts affected the chemistry. And he was able to be what he needed to be in that environment. And I found that if you live in these concepts, you can be wonderfully assertive with everybody. Like again, like my professor said, you can tell anybody anything if they really believe you love them. If you're, look, I mean, God has allowed me to be with remarkable people on, who've done astounding things and who have been in very privileged places in society. And I'm telling you, I could serve none of those people, none of them, if I was intimidated by them. But I wasn't intimidated by them. You know why? Because I learned assertiveness. So I could tell this fella this, and I could tell this fella this, and I could tell this fella this, or I could tell this lady this, and that lady this, because I wasn't intimidated. Because the concepts that I was living by were helping me to be the assertive person I needed to be. I would be of no effect to all of these people if I was not assertive. But it was through concepts affecting the very chemistry with people that I could be assertive. So all of us here must get these concepts down. Don't live by inferior concepts. You live by the superior concepts that are part of being a disciple of Jesus. And these concepts are going to allow you entrance into people's lives without intimidation. Without intimidation. You'll be able to hug people, you'll be able to love people, you'll be able to talk people, you'll be able to affect people through these concepts. All right. Any questions about this one? I find this very, very important. Questions? All right. Let's look at the two more chapters here. We're going to look at boundaries. And assertive people set boundaries. Unassertive people do not. So it was hard for me to set boundaries when I was in my unassertive days. I was afraid to set boundaries. I didn't even know about setting boundaries. But when you set boundaries, you are saying, I'm a good steward of my life. I refuse to not use my life in the best of the best of the best ways. You set boundaries. There's a whole summary. You know, healthy relationships have clear boundaries. Unhealthy relationships have unclear boundaries. Boundaries clarify responsibilities in relationships. Boundaries protect a relationship from inappropriate behavior. Boundaries challenge a person to grow. Boundaries protect you emotionally. We're delicate, we're fragile emotionally. We're very fragile. So we've got to have boundaries. Like, sir, you will not talk to me like that again. Ever, never, never. Boundaries help you exercise your will. So those are some points on boundaries. But look at some of the boundaries. Like you see body boundaries, what people do with your body. Hey, this lady, no kidding, I kid you not. She was a TCU girl, Amy. She was a TCU girl. She was working on her master's at TCU. Well, at church, this girl, and I was counseling her, right? This girl would go up to her and purr and meow. And they'd be in a social setting, and this girl would just warm up to her and purr and meow. And yep, I swear, God's honest truth. So actually, there is a psychological problem where a person actually starts acting like an animal. It's called lycanthropy. In the ancient word, Aristotle actually mentioned this is called boanthropy. That is the ancient term, but it's called lycanthropy, and it's where the person starts taking on the characteristics of an animal. Nebuchadnezzar had boanthropy, lycanthropy. But this lady was kind of doing the lycanthropy thing, you know, meow. And so she came to me, and she didn't want to hurt her feelings. She didn't mind being embarrassed and her feelings being hurt, but she didn't want to hurt the feelings of the meower. So, you know, what do you do in a case like that? What did the meower need to hear? Just, we'll just pet you. Nice kitty, nice kitty, nice kitty cat, you know. So I told her, look, you're gonna have to set a boundary. It's a body issue. You don't want someone meowing, you know, it's embarrassing, and, you know. So she actually got assertive with her, said, look, I want to be a friend of yours, but we're going to have to drop this purring and meowing stuff. We're going to have to drop it. It is not working for our relationship. And it was a good thing. She said she felt good, and the girl actually stopped it. Now, I don't know if she meowed on anyone else, but she at least stopped meowing on her, you know? So body, and then a conversation, good conversation, and what people say to you, and if people emotionally vomit on you, what are you going to do with emotional vomiting? Here's the time one. Time is the one thing we want the most of, the worst thing we use. So actually, having boundaries with time, and then emotional boundaries. Again, I mentioned you're emotionally fragile, and then social boundaries. The type of people, the experiences with people, the amount of time with people, the social environment, having good social boundaries, and giving boundaries. You're finite. You can give. You can even burn yourself out giving. Like this one fella, wow, this is quite a story. He could never set boundaries. He was just passive compliant. He got married to a lady who actually had borderline personality disorder. And when he was a carpenter, one of the best carpenters in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And as soon as he got home from the weekends, he worked hard all week. And then on weekends, she'd say, now I want you to build this and do this and do that and do this. And she had a list. And for 13 years, he did everything she wanted him to do and was really just becoming more and more enraged. He could not say no to his wife. He couldn't say no to her. She just used him and used him and used him. He got to the point he even started yelling at God, screaming at God. And because he knew he couldn't divorce her, he said, I can't divorce you. He didn't know what to do. And I started counseling him. And he was on the verge of committing suicide. He actually did say, I was real close to killing myself. So I actually met with both of them, and we talked about boundaries in this relationship and got this thing straightened out. Had we not gotten it straightened out, he is a free will human being. If he wants to spend his weekends relaxing, great. Now, if the plumbing goes out, he's got to fix the plumbing. He knows that. But he's a free will being who's got to decide what he's going to do with himself. But you're controlling him and trying to, control him, and this is not working. So one of the things we have to realize is you're finite. You can give, and that's wonderful, but you can give to a fault to the point that you start resenting giving. And you don't want to resent giving. You want to give freely and give as you can in the stewardship of your own life. So boundaries. So getting good at setting boundaries, all right? And then I go into how to build the boundaries. Any questions about the boundaries issue? There's been some marvelous books written about it. And you can make it clear, hey, sir, before you take me out on this date, I got some boundaries, all right? And I want you to understand what these boundaries are. That's pretty assertive, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be? That's pretty doggone assertive, yeah. And, there's some ways to be assertive, right? It's a good one, yeah. So any questions about boundaries? All right. All right, now here's the game plan, all right? So practice assertiveness, all right? We're getting to the tail end here. Practice assertiveness, turn to page 91. You've got to take responsibility for your own self. I like what Douglas Adams says, when you blame others, you give up your power to change. It's a pretty good comment. So this is kind of a playbook. Now, practice assertiveness. You've got to establish, you've got to work on, like, for instance, some beautiful collisions. Can anybody think of a beautiful collision that they've got to have, you just have to have it, and you're going to have this beautiful collision? You want to think of it? In counseling, like I've got about 11 sessions tomorrow. I'm counseling. I'm going to have to be pretty assertive with several of those people in those sessions right there. I know I'm going to have to be pretty assertive with them, or I won't bless them. I just won't bless them. So can you think of it? If you just think, oh, you know what? I need to be assertive here. I remember when I was a freshman in college, my roommate started borrowing my clothes. Now, he had problems. He had problems. I couldn't sleep. I had to put a fan on because he snored so loud. I got straight A's. He got straight F's. Totally different people. And I would even get his bed when he was snoring so loud. I would actually pick his bed up and drop it. He still wouldn't wake up. He would still be sleeping. He would sleep in a comatose state. I swear, it was unbelievable. And so I couldn't. So I'd have the fan. That still wouldn't quite drown him out. I just started studying until 4 every morning. That's what I did. And I just get exhausted. And then I played basketball, and I had to get up at 6. It was horrible, man. And as soon as that semester ended, I got away from him as quick as I could. But I was unassertive. I was just an unassertive fella. And he was borrowing my clothes. And I just, yeah, that looks nice on you. Yeah, it looks nice on you. He borrowed this nice jacket, London Fog, and it really started bothering me because it started getting yellow under the armpits, you know. Yeah, that was a bummer. But I finally got up enough nerve after the whole semester had used my clothes, said, you know, I just don't want you to use my clothes, okay? And could you please dry clean the London Fog, you know? Could you do that? And everything. That's about as best as I got at that point. Now, look, I recognize you guys are young. You're young, you know, and I'm older. So I've got experience and I've got, you know, and so I can talk like I'm really got it all together and everything. Because, you know, I've had years to get a lot together. So I understand you're young. You're at the beginning of the curve. You know, you're learning to work this thing here. So I understand that. But what advantage to hear this stuff right now? I wish I would have attended a seminar like this and someone would have said, come on now. We're going to get this thing lined up right. You're going to be assertive. So you can be the best you, right? So I encourage you to start practicing assertiveness. Think of maybe one person you need to have a beautiful collision with and have a beautiful, not a bad collision. It's not going to be a bad collision. It's going to be a beautiful collision. Utilize a assertiveness journal. If you use like a little memo book, I like memo books, but if you utilize like a memo book, you could, something like that. You could actually start writing down times that you were passive compliant, times you were assertive, grade yourself. That will help you to be acutely aware of being assertive. If you keep a little journal, the whole purpose of that is simply, or a memo book, is simply to create an acuteness. That's all, an acute awareness that you're working on this thing, okay? And then I give an example there of like assertiveness journal, assertiveness monitoring. And then teach someone you have learned. Now, one of the best things with this is you do a one-on-one discipleship with somebody on assertiveness. Say, hey, come on, how about if I disciple you on assertiveness? Or how about if we learn together? You can go through this whole book with somebody, or you teach somebody assertiveness. And then pray about it. It should be on your prayer list, because if it's on your prayer list, what happens, you're praying to God, and it's actually in short-term memory in the prefrontal cortex. It's there, and it's there usually all day long that you've prayed about it. That's going to stay on your brain if you pray about it, okay? I prayed 1,000 times about assertiveness. I'm glad I prayed because it kept it in the forefront of my thinking. And then this assertiveness training thing, if you want to go into greater detail with somebody. Be sure to read the epilogue. It's a nice epilogue, okay? All right. Any questions as we close out? Any questions about anything? It's been great being together, huh? Yes, uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's tough. Yeah.
Like, if your boss likes to gossip.
Oh, yeah.
Phone next to you.
Yeah. How do you work with that?
How do you, or like even not just.
Yeah.
Or like just start to maybe.
Good question. That's a good question. I didn't emphasize it here tonight, but there's in the book I have what's called the humble approach. And if you say to an older fella, you know, I'm younger than you. I'm younger. And I know you're more experienced and you're older and you've got this position and everything. See, it's a humble approach, but you know, I just think that the way you handle things is not becoming. It's just not becoming of you. Now, I know I'm younger, you're older. You know, see how that's a good a humble approach to someone who's older. That's why the Bible says that younger fellas are to speak to older fellas in a gentle way, you know, not in a harsh way. But the humble approach works beautifully. So you might want to try the humble approach, acknowledging what it is. Now, I recognize you have a higher position, you're older, and understand that, and you have more experience. But, you know, there's just something, you need to realize, and it's just not becoming. It's not becoming of you to act like this, you know. And that's take it. Then you slip the moral, spiritual high ground, and then you whack him on the knees. Okay. Kidding about that. Okay. Yeah. I hope that helps the humble approach. Yeah. Any other questions about anything?
Sounds like, yeah. I don't know if that would work.
Yeah.
Like how that would go over.
Yeah, sometimes the direct approach does not work well, but you can be direct at some point.
Yeah.
But the humble approach and the moral spiritual high ground works very, very well with that. So, all right. Any other questions about anything? Yes.
Yeah.
Elaborate more on like.
So if I understand your question, you're saying that you're talking about emotional situations, you know, where things are getting out of whack emotionally. Is that what you're saying, and how to work with that? Is that your question?
Yeah, sure. Or just like. And being assertive.
Okay, like let's say there's some joking about inappropriate things. You know, let's say there is, and everyone's laughing about some, you know, and then you throw out a line like, "Shall we laugh at sin?" And then you throw out the scripture. You throw out the scripture that says that there must not be coarse joking about things. And if it's Ephesians 5:4 or something like Colossians, something, I'll find a verse for you. But it says it. There's a verse that actually talks about that. You quote a scripture into that situation, but you know, if you get in an assertive mindset, I'm telling you, you'll surprise yourself, just like Zach was surprised. You get in this assertive mindset, not a mean mindset, not mean, assertive, especially if something's going down. That's not. So everyone's laughing about something that happened to somebody, or laughing about something. You know, you throw in, you know, the scripture says, you know, that person you're talking about is made in the image of God. How could you talk about a person made in the image of God like that? See, that's moral, spiritual high ground. 5:4. See, do you have it there? Does what it say? Yeah, memorize Ephesians 5:4. Quote it, and you'll bless the people. Yeah. So yes, sir. Yeah. Well, there's about 12 subjectivisms. If you can at least get to the 12, okay, so let me throw out what the 12 are, okay? There's at least 12. One of them is taking something personal. So if someone does not call you back and you start, well, maybe they didn't call you back because their phone fell in the toilet. You know, that's the real reason, you know? But to take that personal, so taking something personal. Magnifying something, taking a small thing and blowing it up into a big thing, right? All right? Catastrophizing something, turn into an utter catastrophe. I'm quitting school. I'm done with school. I'm done with focus. Heck with focus, you know. That's catastrophize. No, simply talk to the one person that you got to get things straightened out. Why quit focus? All you have to do is work out one thing with one person, you know. That's all. So instead of turn into a catastrophe, all right? There's other things like it's called extreme thinking. You always, you never. You know, you always, you never. You never hang out with me. No. 16% of the time, the person never hangs out with you. You know, I mean, if you did scientific studies, it would not be never, it would be 16%, you know. So you never, you always. Then misattribution of motives. You misattribute a motive to someone. Oh, misperception, you perceive something, so we got to do perception checking. You misperceive something. Worrying is considered a subjectivism. You worry about something, you're worried, that's subjectivism. Being overly critical is subjectivism. And there's about a dozen. I gave you a few of them, but there's like a dozen. One of the best reads is guy named Beck, Aaron Beck. He's the father of cognitive behavioralism. He pretty well lays out all of the subjectivisms in his work. But I've got most of them listed in my work as well. Yeah, creating fictitious scenarios, yeah, is one, and yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, yes.
Okay, so with like boundaries and friendships and like relationships,
The idea of compromise,
yeah,
or the
they're like there needs to be compromise in every, like then, so, but then like we've been
well,
taught,
one
like,
of the things, see, one of the things is to respect our uniqueness and respect that you are a free will being. If someone does not like the fact that, for instance, I use the New Living Translation, well, should I freak out and get all upset? If you know, the thing is, I'm a free will being who has decided as a free will being to use the New Living Translation. I mean, that's a mild thing, but, you know, whatever the particular thing may be, you know, you're a free will being, okay? And if you establish that you're a free will being who has the capability to make judgments or decisions for themselves, then that will allow you to be who you need to be. But in certain situations, compromise is a good thing. You couldn't have a good marriage without compromise. But you still, in the compromise, you have to respect the free will being of the person, the uniqueness of the person. So compromise with respect to the uniqueness and the free will being of the other person. Compromise with respect. So that's how I would work that one. So, yeah.
What if there's some validity?
Yeah, I don't know. The don't feel it thing is, you know. Yeah, yeah, see, this don't feel it thing is the only thing that trips me up. Well, sometimes if we don't feel it and we compromise, are we on the side of what's good, or is it good, or is it creating bad? I don't know. You got to think about it. So I can compromise. Like I will not compromise a lot of things. Like will not, no matter what. Like no one here could force me to drink soda. You guys could. You could gang up on me, you know, or you could put me in the middle and all y'all drink soda. I would not drink soda. It's not going to happen. I have a vow not to drink soda for the rest of my life. So it's just, I will never compromise on that. But, you know, and I will never compromise on sweet tea either. I won't do that either. But there's some things I'll compromise on, I might do that, yeah. I just might. Yeah, I just might on that. But what I order, I wouldn't compromise on. I don't know, you know, you might have to come to session with me and we talk about that, you know. There's I don't know exactly. I guess there's a little specific thing there that you want to alluding to. Right. Well, here's the thing is, guys, if you get in a situation like that, I think with many advisors, there's victory. See, Proverbs 15:22. So we may have to say, okay, let me get some advice here. Let me see what others are saying that gives me objectivity. And that's part of the objective thing. Finding objective thinkers to help me make an objective decision. So we may have to find objective thinkers to make an objective decision about that. So that may be your best thing. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Hey, aren't you glad you're in the kingdom? Aren't you glad you're in the kingdom? Best place, best environment on the face of the earth. There could be a better environment than the kingdom of God that we're a part of. So we just thank God for that. And you want to close it out, brother, since you opened it? So, yeah, go ahead and close it out, and then we'll be around for a little bit. You want to say anything? Okay, yeah. Amen. All right. All right. Thank you. No, I'm a man. There is the man, but I'm just a man. Yeah. And I'm happy. I'm a man. I'm happy to be a man. Yeah, very happy.
Afraid I get an A or